While most of the business gurus are distracting you with social media hacks and 101 different complicated acquisition strategies, this simple system generated 5.3 million in just 12 months and over 140 million online for me and my clients' businesses across hundreds of different niches. So in this video, I'll show you exactly how this simple system works and give you the step-by-step process to get consistent leads and reach six-figure months, even if you don't have a team. But first, you need to understand what's killing 99% of marketing systems right now so you don't waste months and tens of thousands of dollars building something that's doomed to fail. Imagine this is your potential client and over here is you, your product, and your solution. The job of our marketing is simple: to get people from left to right, make them aware of your offer and give them a reason to take action. This used to be as easy as just having a message that resonated saying, come check out what I've got. But we are so far from that now. Today, when we try to tell someone about our offer, they doubt us. They don't trust us. Buyers are skeptical. And the last thing they want to do is move closer. Now, before you panic too much, this only sounds bad if you're not aware of it, but now you are. So let me quickly show you what you actively need to ignore or remove from your marketing to give yourself the best chance of attracting high-value clients. The key is to avoid cold, valueless marketing systems. In a world where trust is low, we need to prove that we can be trusted by building a relationship with potential clients. This is why marketing systems like video sales letters or cold DMing, anything where the sale is the focus rather than trust and value, they just don't work anymore. So let me introduce you to the marketing system that bridges the gap between us and potential clients and results in consistent, predictable sales. Abram copied this marketing system and now makes over $100,000 every week. Irina was able to sell her $3,700 coaching program, and Magdalena made £54,000 on her very first try implementing this. And not only am I using this, but so many of the biggest names in online business: Alex Hormozi, Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, just to name a few. The marketing system we're talking about here is webinars. They're the most powerful marketing system I have ever used. In fact, on average, a lead is worth 7 times more to my business if they came from a webinar. But as you can imagine, that's only if you do it right. So let's go through this step by step, the makings of $1 million webinar system. In fact, I created an entire framework to simplify all of this, which I'm going to be teaching from today. So if you want a free copy of this, it's part of my 7-figure framework bundle, which you can see in the link in the description box or the top comment. So feel free to download it right now so you can follow along and go through it with me in the video. So let's start with what to say in section 1 to ensure that your potential clients trust you, begin building a relationship with you, and move toward a buying decision without even knowing what the offer is yet. So section 1 is called setting the stage, and it's really, really important because most people, when they design a webinar marketing system, they think that the start of the presentation needs to be all about them. They need to announce immediately to the attendees of the webinar, be it live or automated, who they are and why they are credible and why they should be listened to. But what you need to realize is that people aren't joining your webinar to learn about you. They are there for them. They're there for selfish gain. They registered for your presentation because they thought that there was going to be some value in there for them. So if we get too quickly into introducing ourselves, people will leave. If you take a look at the high ticket webinar framework, if you downloaded it from the bundle, you'll see that it's not until step 5 that we introduce you and your story. There are a few steps that we do before that, and really the big hook, the tease, the no going back, the end result, and the without statements, all that we're doing in those 5 things is telling the prospect why they should care about this presentation, that we get them, we understand them, and we've got the goods. So to go a step further, the very first step being the big hook, I am not going to start my presentation by saying, hey, welcome to the session today, or where are you calling in from, or hey, I just had a wonderful afternoon in the sunshine. I'm not doing any of that. I'm getting straight into the big hook. Hey, it's great to have you on today's session. We are going to be diving into how you can achieve XYZ without XYZ. And it's hooking someone immediately to stick with the presentation because we have piqued their interest. And then as you see, we go down to teasing them with what this presentation is going to be able to do for them. We explain how there is no going back. Once you learn this information, you will think about the problem differently and have a greater chance at getting some success, which then leads to the end result. What are we here to achieve on this webinar today? What am I here to help you with? And then I follow that up with the without statements, which are a few things that I say that they're going to be able to achieve the result without. These are things that they either don't have or don't want. For example, if I had a weight loss webinar, I might say, without having to spend hours in the gym, because they don't want that, or I could say, without even needing a gym membership, because that's something that they might not have. So it's things they don't want or don't have. And it's only once we have done those first 5 steps that then we get to you and your story. This is the moment where you can say, if that all sounds good to you, then listen, my name's John Penberthy, welcome to the session, I'm so pleased you're here. Let me tell you very quickly how this whole thing came to be. And that's where you would go into your journey. How did you get to this point? How are you delivering this webinar right now? How did you gather this information that is so valuable that you're going to share with them? This is the moment where they get a chance to now connect with you as the host. We've made it worth their while, they know why they're here, and now they get to know the presenter. And you might follow that up with a few testimonials if you have some to back up that what you have is the goods and it's helped other people before you. And then I also like, and there's one step there, who is this for? I like to make it very clear who this presentation is for and also who it's not for. This is where we're starting to qualify and disqualify people from continuing to watch the presentation, because ultimately we want this to be a valuable session, but we do also want people to get to the end who are our ideal clients. Now, once section 1 is complete, we've now laid the groundwork and we've built trust with the audience, which perfectly transitions into section 2. This is where we endeavor to provide as much value as humanly possible, but without giving them so much that they feel they can just go ahead and do it without our help. This is such a fine line to walk, and it's so important we get this right. Not only are we trying to remove skepticism by proving we know what we're talking about, but we're trying to do it in such a way that also has people ready and wanting to work with you by the end. So let's dive into section 2, and this is called the wow, not the how content. This is the part where we are actually going to teach, but we're going to teach in a very specific way. Now, I figured this out a few years ago, and it transformed everything. I used to do webinars, and I would teach in the traditional way, where we genuinely try to cram as much actionable content in the presentation as possible, and hope that we've done such a good job at providing value that people can't help but throw their money at you. The law of reciprocity kicking in. Ultimately, that didn't happen for me. I had webinars where people would say, this was amazing content, and then crickets at the end when I make an offer. And by learning and implementing the wow, not the how concept, I turned webinars that went from great content, no sales, to great content and an abundance of sales and clients out the other end. It made all the difference. I'm going to share it with you now. The idea is that we're going to teach them things that give them that wow feeling, gives them an epiphany, a light bulb moment, but it doesn't share exactly how to do it. There is something called the curse of knowledge. And the idea is, because you're an expert, because you have the goods, you just imagine that everyone else knows the same thing. That of course this is this and that is that. But it's not like that for your prospects. You could share a basic tip that to you is common knowledge, and to them is a complete revolution to how they've been thinking. And it's so important you understand this, because if you don't, you'll actually go so far in providing as much value as you can that people won't buy because you've legitimately overwhelmed them with good, positive information. Instead, we need to teach our content in such a way that gives the prospect an epiphany, a light bulb moment, but then doesn't give them the how-tos. Think about this. Let's say you were interested in getting into property investing, and to you it's brand new, you've never done it before, and you go for a coffee with a very successful property investor. He sits you down, or she sits you down, and talks about different strategies and gives you acronyms and all this cool stuff, and talks about the opportunity and how much money you can make on a flip and all sorts of stuff. They're firing this information at you. You would be going, that's awesome, that's exciting, massive opportunity, learning all these new cool things. But it's not possible in one sit-down coffee meeting to know exactly how to do it. You would leave that coffee meeting with an abundance of ideas and feeling so excited, but you wouldn't know how to do the paperwork, how to find the deal, what we're looking for in a certain property. And if this was a webinar, you would get to the very end. And if that person said, if you want to implement this stuff, I've got a system and a product and a program that you can buy, you would probably think about throwing your credit card at that person. That's the feeling that we're trying to create here with our content. I like to do that by describing big discoveries, and those big discoveries should stack on each other and start to paint a bigger picture. So I like to have 3 or 4 wow, not how training points. In one of my highest converting webinars, my first training point was discovering the power and the quality of video ad traffic. I was able to teach and explain how other traffic sources are not as valuable because it's only using the written word, whereas with a video you can connect with a prospect through the screen. You've got more tonality, there's more senses that we can get across. So we build authority, connect with the person, and we actually increase conversions. Now that was my first training point. I haven't told them how to record the video, how to script it, how to launch the ad, but I have left the prospect going, wow, that sounds amazing. I want video ads in my business. And then I would stack on that. And then the second thing I learned was the power of a webinar presentation. And I found that video ad traffic into a webinar was a match made in heaven for this reason and this reason and this reason. And then big discovery number 3 was that then if you follow that up with a high ticket product, you've got people ready to part with 5K, 10K, 15K. And here's why that's the case. And here's the opportunity that we have. And I might have stacked a 4th on there. And essentially we're getting the prospect to the point where they are glued to the screen. They are loving the information, but they're fired up to take action with us and join our program, as opposed to take action without us because they feel they've got everything that they need. So now the third section of this framework is where we now offer the product or the service. Because of all the value, the goodwill, the trust that's been built in section 1 and 2, if we do and say certain things in section 3, we can end the webinar with a calendar full of booked appointments, people lining up to work with us, and never have that feeling that we're actually selling anything to anyone. But again, if done wrong, this is where 100% of people will leave. So let's make sure we get it right. Now, there's a couple of things that I do differently in this final section when I'm inviting the prospect to take the action and book a call with me than other people would teach at this point. Definitely different to what people teach with video sales letters and other funnels like that. I don't just invite someone to book a call with me. I find that depositions me as the expert and the business owner, and also leaves it quite ambiguous as to what the call is even about. And I have found actually decreases the amount of people that book calls with us because they kind of need to know what they're booking a call for. So there's a few things that I do that are very important before I invite them to book the call. And then there's one final critical piece that I do immediately after that makes all the difference. So the first thing I do is this thing called Inspire Change. You'll see as step 1 in section 3. And this is where I want to inspire them to make a change in their life right now. And that change would be booking a call with me and joining my coaching program, but we're not saying it in so many words. I'm going to say something along the lines of, hey, I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation. I hope you've learned a ton of stuff. Can I encourage you? Let's make a change in your life right now. Don't leave this webinar and just go back to what you were doing before and expecting a different result. If you want a different result, you've got to take a different action, and I believe I've got something that will help you here today. Then there's a couple of other things that happen here which you can read about when you download the resource, but I'm going to move to the invitation. And this is where I am going to say, I would like you to book a call with me so that we can chat about how I can help you with this problem and implement the solution. Now, here's the critical piece that I add once I've invited them to book a call, and I actually implement it in 2 parts. Part 1 is I tease them with the offer. So I actually tell them a little bit about what we're going to be discussing on the phone. I say, hey, I want to get to know you and see if I can help you. And if I can, I've got this incredible program called XYZ, and here's a little bit about it. I have found that by giving a bit more information, I actually increase the amount of calls that I get booked, because now they know what it is that they're booking a call to talk about. There's no surprises. It doesn't feel like a bait and switch. And I increase the quality of people booking calls because, again, they know what they're booking the call to talk about. And then part 2 that follows this up immediately, you can see it here, is the pushback. And the pushback is where I make it clear that a spot in my program is not guaranteed. In my business, and I teach this to my clients as well, I do a mini cohort model. I call it Money Week. I've got videos on my channel where I talk about this, but essentially I have periods of time where my enrollment is closed for my program, and I have a small window where it's open. This allows me at the end of the webinar to say with full confidence that there is no guarantee that you'll get to come in. I'm closed most of the time, but if we're a good fit, we can at least explore it and see if maybe the next cohort would be a good fit for you. And then there are a couple of final steps on here, which we won't focus on right now. The final piece I want to touch on is final chance. It's the last step, and this is where you're just about to end the webinar, you make it clear it's about to end, you again inspire them to make a change, and you give them a final chance to book that call before the webinar shuts down. There's a high portion of people that just need to be told what to do. And if you, at the end of the webinar, make it clear, this is your last chance, we're about to close down, click the link, get your call booked, you'll find you'll get a final little boost of calls booked on the calendar. Now, the webinar is the most powerful marketing system I've ever used, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. In fact, it's just this one little piece here, part of a much bigger plan. So if you want to learn and implement the entire marketing blueprint to grow and scale million-dollar online businesses, then check out this video right here where I break it down A to Z. You're going to love it.